Ever get that nagging feeling that you're just not quite where you're supposed to be in life? That somehow everyone else is moving faster, hitting their goals, and you're just stuck? Well, you are definitely not alone. Today, we're going to dig into the psychology of why we feel this way, and more importantly, what we can actually do about it. So, let's get into it. This simple sentence right here, it's one of the most common things financial therapist Lindsay Bryan Podvin hears from her clients. It's this universal kind of gut punch feeling that we're falling short. And it doesn't matter how old you are or how much you make, this sense of being behind can just sneak in and really mess with your head. But what does it even mean? And that right there is the million-dollar question. Behind is totally relative. Behind who, exactly? Your friends from college? That influencer you follow on Instagram? The life your parents thought you'd have? Posing this question really forces you to see that the feeling isn't based on some objective truth, but on a comparison. And that comparison game, it often starts in one very specific place: our jobs. The workplace. I mean, think about it. It's the ultimate arena for comparison, right? Everything is measurable. Promotions, salaries, who gets the cool projects. It's a system that's practically built to make us look around and ask, hey, am I getting a fair shake here? And this feeling, it's not just in our heads. It's actually rooting in a pretty powerful psychological theory. This brings us to a really foundational idea called equity theory. And what it basically says is that fairness is one of our deepest, most powerful motivators. See, we're not just trading our time for money. We are constantly, subconsciously running this audit in our heads, trying to make sure the scales are balanced between what we put in and what we get out. It's this deep-seated human need for things to feel fair. So just imagine this. We all walk around with this invisible scale in our minds. On one side, we pile up everything we contribute, all of our inputs. And on the other side, we stack up everything we get back in return, all the outcomes. And we're constantly, often without even realizing it, just checking to see if those two sides are balanced. So let's break down what actually goes onto that scale. Our inputs, well, that's way more than just the hours we work. It's our loyalty, it's the personal sacrifices we make, the good attitude we bring to the team. And the outcomes? Again, it's more than just the paycheck. It's things like job security, getting a good job from your boss, or just that simple feeling of being valued. It's a really complex personal equation for each of us. And this is where the emotional fallout really happens. When we look at a colleague and we feel like their scale is tipping more in their favor, like they're getting more outcomes for the same inputs, we feel what's called inequity. And that often shows up as anger or just feeling demotivated. If it all feels balanced, we're satisfied. But what's really interesting is that if we feel like we're getting more than others for similar work, that also creates a sense of inequity, which can lead to guilt or even overconfidence. But this whole dynamic isn't just about the office. So let's zoom out. The same dynamic that plays out between cubicles also happens across society as a whole. That feeling of being behind gets way louder and more intense when the economic gaps in the world around us are really wide. This feeling actually has a name: status anxiety. It's that low-grade, constant hum of worry about where we stand on the social ladder. It's the fear that we're not just falling behind financially, but that we're being judged and seen as less than. You know, this isn't just about keeping up with the Joneses. It's a much deeper anxiety that can really eat away at our happiness. And here's the thing. We don't compare ourselves to billionaires or huge celebrities. That gap is just too massive to feel real. No, instead, we look right over the fence, sometimes literally. Our referent groups, our neighbors, our old college friends, our colleagues, they become our yardsticks. Their new car or their kitchen remodel feels way more personal and way more immediate. And this isn't just a hunch. It's backed up by some pretty fascinating research. Psychologists have actually mapped out a whole psychological chain reaction, like a series of dominoes, that starts with how we see the economy around us. Okay, so when the gap between the rich and poor gets wider, it changes the whole psychological vibe of a place. It makes us feel like we're living in this high-stakes, zero-sum game, a constant competition, where you have to fight just to keep up, or you risk getting left behind. And that feeling of competition, that's the direct trigger for status anxiety. The more competitive the world feels, the more we worry about our own place in it. So that feeling of being behind, it isn't just you. It's a very real response to the social world you're living in. So we've seen this dynamic at work and out in society. But what's the core psychological engine that's driving all of this? Let's give it a name: the comparison trap. And it's all explained by a classic theory.
See, at the very heart of all this is something called social comparison theory. It's the idea that we are fundamentally hardwired to compare ourselves to other people. It's like we have this built-in social GPS. And listen, this isn't a character flaw. It's a basic human thing, a way for us to figure out our place in the tribe. The real trouble starts when we let that GPS lead us in the wrong direction.
Now, social comparison really goes in two main directions. When we make an upward comparison, looking at someone who has more than us, whether it's money or success or talent, the result is almost always envy. But when we make a downward comparison, looking at someone with less, it can kind of paradoxically make us feel better about where we are. It's why hearing about someone else's bad luck can sometimes give us this secret, guilty little sense of relief. But envy can turn pretty toxic. Researchers have identified something they call malicious envy. This isn't the kind of envy that makes you want to work harder. No, this is the kind that makes you secretly wish the other person would fail. When you feel this, studies show you're actually less likely to help out a colleague you're envious of, which is obviously terrible for teamwork. Okay, so we're wired to compare, and it can make us feel awful and even act kind of crummy. That's the diagnosis. But what's the cure? How do we actually escape the comparison trap? Well, the good news is there are concrete, practical steps we can all take. So, how do we break the cycle? Here's a practical 5-step plan. First, track your own progress. Stop looking sideways at other people and start looking back at how far you've come. That's the only race that matters. Second, use jealousy as a guidepost. That little pang of envy is a compass pointing directly at something you really want. Use it to clarify your own goals. Third, practice the serenity mantra. You can't control your colleague's promotion, so focus your energy only on what you can control. Fourth, acknowledge your wins. When you do something cool and someone compliments you, just say thank you. Own it. Don't downplay it. And finally, number 5, curate your influences. Your social media feed is like your mental living room. Unfollow the accounts that make you feel bad about yourself. It's that simple. And this all brings us to a really powerful final thought. We often think the goal is equality, giving everyone the exact same thing. But look what happens. It doesn't actually work for everyone. The real goal is equity, giving each person what they uniquely need to succeed. It's not about having the same house or car as your neighbor. It's about figuring out what size box you need to see over your own fence. So the next time that feeling of being behind starts to creep in, try asking a different question. Instead of compared to who, maybe ask yourself, what do I truly need to take my next step?